She had been a golden girl, cradled in privilege her whole life, yet she was forced to marry a country farmer she'd never met before. The man was so nervous when he saw her that his hands trembled, and she, showing none of a bride's shyness, asked an absurd question instead.
Do you think you'll be able to love the baby?
I do.
The man's answer was clumsy, yet firm and powerful. But this was nothing more than a transaction. Livy had been a promising archaeology student until she became pregnant a few months earlier, and the boyfriend who had sworn eternal love vanished the moment he heard the news. In that conservative era, an unmarried pregnancy was a crime shameful enough to disgrace an entire family. To cover up the scandal, her father forced her to marry Ray, an honest countryman. Their wedding took place that very afternoon. No flowers, no blessings, not even a wedding ring. But Livy didn't mind at all. For her, this wasn't a sacred marriage at all. It was just a fig leaf. A show put on for her father's sake. In her heart, as long as she could track down her missing boyfriend, as long as the scandal blew over, she would eventually leave this desolate farm. The first day of their marriage was filled with suffocating distance. To make Livy comfortable, Ray gave her the only spacious master bedroom, and moved into the smaller room himself. At their first dinner together, the awkwardness between them was thick. One was a female scholar steeped in ancient Roman history. The other was a farmer who had barely ever left his small town. Between them lay not just an educational gap, but a chasm of class and perspective. After the meal, Livy couldn't hold back any longer and asked the sharp question.
Why you agreed to this?
Ray paused in his tracks, his gaze pure and simple.
When the Reverend come out to see me and told me about your situation, I thought maybe it'd be God's will.
Late that night, Livy lay alone on the unfamiliar bed, clutching the necklace she always wore. Inside was a photo of her missing boyfriend. She resented the injustice of fate, resented her father's cruelty, and resented herself for dumping her mess of a life onto an innocent man. Overwhelmed by guilt and self-pity, she sobbed quietly in the still of the night. Ray listened from the other side of the wall, silently, without intruding. And Ray's own story was equally heartbreaking. His parents died young, leaving him and his two siblings to fend for themselves. To help his younger brother fulfill his dream of joining the Navy, Ray gave up his chance to move to the big city, and stayed on the farm alone. But his brother died in the attack on Pearl Harbor. That heavy burden of guilt became a nightmare that haunted Ray's heart. Two deeply wounded souls, under the same roof, began to tentatively test each other's boundaries. Livy wanted to go into town to call home, so Ray put down his farm work and drove her there. While waiting, he made a side trip to the library, and borrowed a few cookbooks and parenting guides. But seeing Livy in the phone booth, and remembering her love for archaeology, he quietly turned back, and checked out several books on archaeology as well. On the other side, though, Livy wasn't calling to check in. She was begging her sister to find out about her ex-boyfriend. She longed for news of him, but the answer was always the same, no word. On the way back, to help Livy feel more at home in the countryside, Ray handed her the steering wheel, and taught her how to drive the old manual truck. The heavy clutch was hard to work, but Ray guided her with endless patience. When Livy finally drove smoothly down the country road, an authentic smile lit up her face. In that moment, she felt the unique charm of rural life. Time flew by. Livy was already 4 months pregnant, yet their marriage had barely lasted 2 weeks. Livy worried that if the baby came too early, people would gossip, but Ray didn't care at all, because everyone here wanted them to be happy. His answer hit her like a gentle hammer blow, softening her heart. Moved by his acceptance, Livy began to step into Ray's world, and Ray's clumsy romantic gestures began to show. Once, while fishing by the lake, Livy lay lazily in the boat, and casually mentioned she loved swimming. She didn't mean anything special by it, but Ray quietly tucked her words into his heart. A few days later, while Livy was napping, she was jolted awake by the roar of heavy machinery. Ray had borrowed an excavator, and was clumsily digging a hole in the yard.
What are you doing with that thing?
Thanks. You said you like to swim. Dig you a hole, so summertimes you and the children can go swimming.
Livy froze on the spot. She hadn't expected that this man, who couldn't even utter a sweet word just because of a casual remark she'd made, try to dig out a summer full of laughter on this very land for her and the child who wasn't even his. Then, at a family dinner, Ray, who usually talked endlessly about potatoes, unexpectedly brought up the excavation of the ancient city of Troy and the history buried in the sand. Livy immediately understood. Ray had memorized those archaeology texts he couldn't even understand, just to match her interests. Deeply moved by his effort and devotion, Livy gently picked up where Ray left off, and told the family the story of Troy, her eyes shining with a light not seen in a long time. Ray's romance wasn't built on flowery words, it was expressed through action, and from that dinner on, Livy completely let down her guard. She stopped feeling sorry for herself, stopped seeing herself as a victim. She traded her fine dresses for loose, comfortable farm clothes, learned to bustle around the kitchen, and even found the morning tractor sounds more beautiful than city symphonies. The real closeness between them began when they touched each other's scars. One day, Livy found a pile of dusty old things in an abandoned bunker. Old farm tools, a broken crib. With an archaeologist's instinct, she brought them home like treasure. But the next day, Ray piled them in the yard and burned them. Livy exploded at him for the first time. Those were things she'd worked hard to bring back. Ray was terrified. He scrambled to fetch water, putting out the fire, and apologized over and over like a child who had done wrong. He didn't understand why she was so attached to that junk, but he was willing to respect her. So early the next morning, he left a note on the table.
Dear Livy, if you like junk, you'll like the cellar. Be careful, it's dusty down there.
Livy went down to the basement and found the family's long-forgotten memories preserved through time. She gently cleaned those artifacts, then asked Ray to hang an old plow once used by his grandfather on the living room wall. That gesture struck Ray deeply, because in this world, no one else had ever valued this family's past the way he did. So Ray responded in kind. He took Livy to a grave, his brother Daniel's resting place. Only then did Livy learn the heavy burden this man carried.
I was the oldest. I should have gone.
Survivor's guilt gnawed at Ray's heart like a venomous snake, day and night, and Livy finally understood why he had taken her and her unborn child in without complaint, because he could no longer give his love and protection to his brother. So he poured all the tenderness in his soul into the new life about to arrive, and into this helpless woman. Two wounded souls, on this open plain, had finally recognized each other. As the due date approached, Livy grew more and more dependent on Ray to make sure she could deliver safely in the harsh winter. Ray even installed a dedicated phone line. But just as their hearts were slowly drawing closer to each other, a blizzard and a letter shattered the peace. One winter night, to surprise Ray, Livy had prepared a candlelit dinner, and even let the yard dog inside to keep warm. But the moment Ray walked in, his face was dark with fury. He roughly chased the dog back outside. His sudden anger confused Livy, until Ray pulled out a letter from her missing ex-boyfriend, belatedly delivered. Only then did Livy remember that when she first arrived, she had written to him. Ray didn't accuse her of deceit or longing. He just suddenly felt exhausted. He had given his heart so fully, and yet it still couldn't compare to that faithless man. Calmly, Ray put on his hat, turned, and walked back into the snow to work, without giving Livy a chance to explain. Watching his retreating back, Livy realized how foolish her mistake had been. To make amends, the next morning, Livy got up early and made a hearty breakfast. Looking at the silent Ray, she gathered her courage and apologized, only to be met with his cold silence. Livy was feeling helpless and lost. Her moist eyes seemed to touch the softest part of Ray's heart. He stepped closer and gazed at her quietly. In his eyes was the weariness of hurt, yet still a faint light that refused to fade. Finally, he gave her a long overdue, tentative kiss.
Is there anything you like about me, Livy?
In that moment, Livy's defenses completely crumbled. She felt overwhelming guilt toward Ray. To stop draining his feelings any further, Livy made a decision. On Thanksgiving Day, her gaze swept across everyone in the room, and finally settled on Ray. Her voice was choked with emotion, yet sincere. She thanked the land for accepting her faults, thanked Ray's family for their boundless kindness. Everyone thought it was just a warm toast. Only Ray's sister sensed, from the redness in Livy's eyes, that she was about to leave. After the meal, Livy packed her things, but when she came downstairs, she found the normally stoic Ray, standing straight at the bottom of the stairs, waiting. This time, Ray didn't back down. He confessed his love to Livy. Then, with trembling hands, Ray pulled out a ring, slightly old-fashioned in style, but polished to a shine.
When the preacher married us, I forgot the ring. I have one now.
But Livy felt she couldn't accept Ray's unreserved love. She didn't deserve him, but Ray looked at her gently.
Someday you're gonna forgive yourself.
Those words were like a key, unlocking the cage Livy had built around herself. What had truly trapped her was never that cheating man, nor the remote countryside. It was herself. She had never been able to forgive herself for trusting the wrong person, for getting pregnant out of wedlock. And Ray's love wasn't charity. It was an equal redemption. On a bitterly cold winter morning, Livy welcomed a new birth in her life. She didn't choose to run. Instead, she stood alone in the snow outside and lit a fire. She threw the photo of her ex into the fire without a moment's hesitation. The leaping fire consumed those false memories, and burned away the version of herself that had been trapped for so long. Just as the fire blazed, Livy's water broke. In the commotion, their new child arrived. Watching Ray hold that baby close to his chest, singing a lullaby with tears in his eyes, a look of pure, grounded happiness finally spread across Livy's weary face. They named the child Daniel, after Ray's fallen brother. That name was not only a tribute to the dead, but also a sign of new life, growing out of two broken souls on this barren land. Later, as spring arrived, the family of three walked through the green fields. Livy, in her floral dress, searched the soil with Ray for the archaeological remains she loved. Their love flowed like a quiet river through ordinary days, unhurried, unshowy, yet deeply nourishing, season after season.